What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another Procreate tutorial where today we're going to go ahead and create this moon scene with our owl sat on our branch there. Now in this tutorial you've got two options. You can either use the tree brushes that I've provided, or I actually show you how to create your own stamps as well for trees. So you'll have the option to pick either way, and you've got both options available to you. As always, you can grab all of the requirements completely free over on my Patreon. It's completely free and linked in the description down below. And while you're there, check out my Patreon where I post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters. The catalogue sits at well over 100 at the time of recording, with 3 added every single month. Sneak peeks, early access, and much, much more. There's so much more to be seen over there. So with all that said, enjoy today's tutorial and let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we'll do is we will go ahead and go to our layers. We'll go to our background color and we will set it to the bottom color in the 3rd column. We'll hit done, and then we're going to go ahead and on the empty layer, we're going to go to our colors, going to grab the top left color in the palette, go to your brush. Let's go to the option of calligraphy and the monoline brush, and it doesn't matter what your brush size is necessarily. I've got mine though set to about 30%. We're going to go ahead and draw in a circle. We're going to draw in a circle, hold our pen at the end, pop one finger on the screen and it will snap to a perfect circle. Let's make it nice and large just for a moment and drag and drop the color in. And then we'll grab our cursor, we'll grab uniform, and we'll just scale this down. Now what I actually want to do is I want to tap on this top right node here, and that allows you to type in a number. So let's go to 627 and it will lock it so it's both sides. And then we want to make sure snapping in the bottom left is turned on, and that will allow us to drag this into the center. We'll get an orange line when we hit the middle point, and if we keep going we'll hit another orange line, which lets us know we're both in the center, both vertically and horizontally. We'll tap on our cursor when we're done. We'll go to the layer, we'll swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The top one out the two, go to your colors and grab the 2nd color on that top row and drag and drop it into the space. Let's tap on our cursor. Let's then go ahead and tap on the node in the top right. We're going to go ahead and type in 419. And then we're going to drag that into the center of our circle, again hitting the orange lines. Then go to your layers again, swipe that to the left and duplicate it. And then again go to your colors and grab the top of the 3rd column. Drag and drop it into that space. And then grab your cursor, tap on one of the nodes and change it to 206. And again, just make sure you drag that into the center of your design. Bingo. Tap on your cursor when you're done. Let's make this glow now. Let's go to our layers. Now each one of these layers we need to tap on it and change its blend mode first of all from normal to the option of add. So just tap on the N, scroll it down to add, tap on the N, scroll it down to add. All your colors will change, and that's on purpose of course. So let's go to the bottom one, the largest circle out of the 3. Let's go to our adjustments and Gaussian blur, and we'll swipe from left to right until we get 25% Gaussian blur. So you drag from left to right and that increases the percentage. If you then go up to your layer again, so upper layer now, go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur. We're not going to do 25 this time, we're going to do 20. So we're going to drop it by 5. So we'll go to 20, and then we'll do the same again. We'll go upper layer, we'll go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and we'll drop it by 5. So we'll swipe up to around about 14 or 15, it doesn't really matter. 14 I'll do for. And I'll tap on my adjustments. When we're done, we get this beautiful glow, don't we? Now it's at this stage of the tutorial where we're going to go ahead and introduce the trees. Now I want to very quickly show you, if I create a new layer, I go to my colors and I double tap in the top left to select white, and I'll just drag it onto the screen so you can't see anything else. If I go to my layers and I create a new layer and I go to my colors and I double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black, I'm going to go ahead and very quickly draw in a tree. Now you can download the tree brushes that I've already made for this, but I want to quickly show you how you could create your own, so you could go ahead and do this in your own style. Simple thing you want to then do, let's go say to drawing or inking, sorry, and let's go ahead and use the studio pen. We'll draw in a straight line down the middle, pop one finger on the screen so it's a nice straight line. And then what you're going to do, your brush, let's go to artistic and we'll use the option of the leatherwood brush. And if you set this fairly small, something to around about say 3 to 4% just to start with, you can start off at the top and you can just go left to right, and I'll make it even smaller. Let's go 2%, and you can just create these little arcs like this, and then make sure you tap a few times to create the odd little leaf here and there. Make sure you run up and down the center though of your column here and zoom out. Just zoom out and make sure you go left to right, up and down your tree until you've filled it in. So let's just say this is your finished tree. Of course, we've got a square canvas. The first thing you want to do is just grab your tree and just make sure you put it in the middle, just like we did before. And then you're just going to want to go ahead, you swipe down with 3 fingers and go to this option here of copy all. You can then go to your brush. Let's just go into calligraphy, for example. If you go to the monoline and you swipe it to the left and you duplicate that brush, you end up with a new version. We tap on this new version. We go to here, we go to the option of shape and we go to shape source. If we tap on that, you'll get this image here, and then just go up to the option here and go to import and paste. Now ours is the wrong way around. We've got white where black should be and vice versa. So if we just tap with 2 fingers, it will revert it. It will invert it to the opposite. You can hit done. And now you've got a tree stamp. So all you need to now do is go to your stroke path, drag up that space in, it nicely separates it all. You can then go ahead and also go to properties. You can go to brush behavior and make it maximum size. You can drag it down to minimum or just leave it. And if you hit done, if you then tap away and we go ahead and, for example, turn that off, I can simply now tap on a new layer. So we'll create a new layer and I can simply tap now and I can utilize my tree. So that's how you can create stamps, and that's how I created the trees that we've got for today's design. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to delete these layers here because they were only temporary, and I'll get back to where we were. Let's go ahead and introduce our trees. So if you created, say, 4 or 5 different trees, you'll have everything you need to carry on in your style and your own version. But if you're using my ones, you're good to go. So then what we'll do is we'll go up to our layers. We will create a new layer right at the top. We'll go to our colors and we'll grab the color in the bottom left of the palette here. We're going to go to our brushes. Now, you'll have been able to download the Simple Trees set. Again, the ones that I've already pre-made in a previous tutorial. But otherwise, you can create your own and they'll be in a slightly different category. But you will have this new category here called Simple Trees. We've got 4 very simple designs and we can just utilize them. So we'll just go to tree 1. We'll set the brush size to around about, say, 27% just to start with. And we're going to position some trees in front of our sun or moon. Now, we only want to do around about 4 or 5. So let's go ahead, first of all, and position one, say, over here. And we don't necessarily want to go too high either, or even with the brush, we could probably go smaller than that, about 23%. We can place one there. We'll change the brush. We'll change it to the tree 2 at about 20% again. We'll position a tree here. You can put them at varying heights as well. That'll look great. Let's jump straight to tree 4 and set that to around about 20% as well. And we'll pop this one maybe a little bit more on the right hand side. In fact, we'll make this one just a smidge larger so there's some variation in here. Lovely. That one's okay for height, maybe a tiny bit high, but we'll move it later. And then you can just simply reuse it again. You could put another one, say, over here, like so. You could put one as wide. So I'm only going to make one more around about 23%, just over here, around about there. You don't really want to go wider than that. And to be honest, that's probably going to get lost later anyway. And in fact, I'll grab my cursor and I'll just move it across a tiny bit. I'll tap on my cursor when I'm done. We'll then go to our layers. We'll create another new layer for the next set of colors. So we'll go to our color. We'll grab the bottom of the second column. We'll go to our brush and we'll grab any tree. Let's grab tree 1, tree 3 even to start with. We'll set the brush size a little bit bigger than the 20 that we had before. So let's go to about, say, 29 and give that a trial. And I'm going to position this one over here, just to the left of this tree. Lovely. Let's then go to our brush. Let's change it. Let's go ahead and jump to tree number 1. Again, slightly bigger. Let's go up to around about the 30% mark. We'll run another tree. Let's make this one a little bit taller, like not that high. And that's okay. We could probably move it down if we wanted to. I'll go to my brush. I'll go to tree 2. And again, I'll set it a little bit larger, up towards that 30%. It doesn't have to. I'll put it just over here. Now, looking as if I'm repeating a little bit. So I'm going to tell you what, I'll push this one over here. And then I'll switch to my tree number 3. I'll set the size again a little bit larger, around about that 30% mark. And I'll position another one, say, here. Let's try and make this one a little bit higher. And let's keep going until we just about get the positioning how we want it. You can always make a selection around it if you wanted to, but trial and error sometimes does enough. Let's then go to our layers and create another new layer. Now this is how we frame these trees. So we go to our new layer, we'll go to our colors and grab the bottom of the third column there. Now I'm going to stick with the same brush I've got. Let's set the brush to 41% and I'm just going to add in a new one over here. Now I want to position it a little bit like this, so it just overhangs the height a little bit, but it's also going to nicely try and sort of frame everything as we go. Let's then go ahead and change the brush. Let's change it to tree number 4. Let's set the brush to around about, say, 34%. We don't want to go too big, and then we want to look at where we've got gaps really, and we can position another tree, say here. We can go to our brush and change it then back to tree number 1, and again slightly larger, about 34%. We can position another tree here. It's going to have to take up a lot of room here, so that's fine. We'll go to our brush and change it then to tree number 2, and again set the brush to around about that 35%. And I want to make sure over here it's starting to think about getting framed a bit more, so I'm going to tap here with a slightly higher positioning. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same brush, maybe around about 28%. I'm just going to tap, creating a bit of a curved sort of bottom edge here. You can see as I tapped all the way along there, I was creating a bit of a curve to try and just flush out the bottom area here of our forest with new small trees in the gaps. So I'm just bringing that down, wrapping it round, and then you should start to be able to frame your work and get rid of any bits of tree that's straying a bit too far. Now for me, I've got a bit of a gap over here, so I can go ahead and go back down to my previous layers. This is why we separate things. I can grab that layer. I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to make sure color fill's turned off, and I'm going to use freehand, and I'm just going to draw through this gap and round all the way around here, tap on the dot, and then I can grab my cursor and I can move these trees just a tiny bit further into screen a little bit more. I could even move them right across, but I'm gonna move them around into about here. And you can do that for any layer you wish. As long as you've got it all separated, you could make a selection of a tree if required. Now for me, I'm going to go ahead and grab my trees and I'm going to move them all across. So I just grabbed each tree by swiping from left to right. Grab my cursor, I'm just going to move it across. I want the balance of this tree to be a little bit more on that right hand side. Lovely, and that's looking about right. So I can tap on my cursor when I'm done. The objective is to get rid of the glow around the edge and allow the trees to kind of blend the glow out into the rest of our tree land. You can even move it slightly up if you want to bury the sun or moon. Again, it's totally up to you what you think it is, into the rest of the scene. So at the minute, we're going to go ahead and now focus on the tree where our owl's going to sit. So we're going to go to our color first of all, and we're just going to double tap in the top left of the disk, making sure you're on the disk tab here to select white. I'm going to go to my layer. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer right at the top. I'm going to go to my brush and change it to inking and the studio pen. If I tap on the studio pen and I go to stabilization, don't worry if you've not seen this before, it's not that off-putting. It's just the streamline options here, which allows your lines to be nice and smooth. I've got my streamline to about 70% and I've got stabilization to about 34. I'm going to hit done. I'm going to go ahead and make my brush size around about the 3% mark. And we're focusing on creating the tree that's going to sit over here. Now, the first thing you kind of want to do is draw in your branch, of course. This is going to be your main focal point. So around about here, I'm drawing as we speak, and I'm going to press a little bit firmer as I make my way over towards my tree. And then I can start to flush this out a little bit more. So making it a bit wider in its body, of course. Don't worry if you leave any gaps, you can always fix this later on. And you want to have a little bit of that sort of jitter in your hand. Let's go ahead and create some new lines underneath here. There we go. For an additional branch that runs across. You might not be able to see it just yet, so maybe you can save your additional kind of smaller branches until we switch the color. But we're using the light color now because we're working against the actual same color as the background. Now what I want you to do, I need you to start right up here, away from this glow. We're going to go ahead and draw in the body of the tree. So we're just going to go ahead and draw that in, coming like down like this. And then all the way down, then go round here, all the way round. It's important because otherwise you'll see these edges. Drag and drop the color in. Now at this point, you can then go ahead and grab your color. You can grab this color here, the bottom of the third column, and drag it into that space. Now all you can see is the silhouette of the tree. If you set the brush size probably a little bit bigger, about sort of 6%, you can now start to flush this out even more. So you could create an additional branch maybe that runs all the way up and across here. And you can really start to flush out your scene a bit more, add some additional details in here, allow branches to stray across. You can also change the body of the tree by introducing new curves and bumps and lumps. You can introduce the branch as it runs down and into the main trunk of the tree. And you can really have some fun adding in mini details like additional levels of branches on here. Let's now draw in our owl. So let's go to our layers and create a separate layer just in case we want to change up its shape a little bit. And the first thing you want to do is draw in a fairly round kind of ellipse shape, a little something like that. That's going to act as our body and you can drag and drop the color in. The brush size, I've just changed it down to 2% just to make it a bit smaller. And then from there, we can go ahead and draw in the head. And we just want to kind of make a fairly kind of simple rounded shape at the top here, drag and drop the color in. From there, you can go ahead and draw in the ears. Now you want to try and keep the ears a little bit off to the side on this left-hand side a bit more. And then this right ear a little bit into the body as if it's facing our light source. So you can put in the ears and it looks like it's looking that way then. And then from the back, I'm just going to go ahead and draw in a point. I'm going to draw in another point fairly close to each other with maybe a little bit of a double sort of W shape there at the bottom. And then drag and drop your color into there. And you should then have the general silhouette of an owl on your branch. You can change it up. You could make the wings a little bit wider if you wanted to. Obviously, they need to be fairly high. You almost create like shoulders for the owl. And that's all you need to do really, just to give your owl a very simple silhouette. And again, you can go ahead and detail the tree as much as you like at this point. You can then go back in. You've got your full design all done with your owl on here as well. You can set the brush back to about sort of 7%, make any adjustments. You're kind of making sure that your lines don't look nice and sort of straight really. You want to have lots of wobble in there, lots of tremor, where just the unevenness of the tree and the branch here, this large branch that runs up here. I can maybe add in another arm that maybe runs all the way off from there, and then introduce some branches that overlap each other, but this owl's just sitting on this very low hanging one here. Now make sure when you zoom out, you've got a nice balance between this tree and this tree, so that your sun or moon, again, whatever you think it looks like, sits nicely in the center. And let's go ahead and make our owl a tiny bit bigger. Let's grab our cursor. Let's use the option of uniform and then scale it up. That keeps its size and ratio the same. So you can't make it wider or taller. It will all move exactly the same. And then from there, let's go ahead and draw in some tiny birds in the distance. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll create a separate layer. Why not? Let's make the brush size nice and small, around about 2%. And let's zoom in. And all you want to do is create like two kind of flick out points here. Sometimes you can create a sort of downward line on the ends and then just a tiny bit more of a rounding in the body. And then you kind of want to sort of change up the scale of them, making them really, really tiny. I only want very, very small birds here, right in the distance. So sometimes you can sort of draw them in with like 3 stages to their wings, as if they're kind of pointing downwards in full motion. Sometimes you may want to draw them in with kind of V shapes to show that their wings are up in the air. So you've got the different kind of parts of the motion of their wings flapping, which gives you then your flock of birds in the distance. We only need to add a couple more details here just to detail this a little bit further. Let's go to our layers. Underneath this dark set of trees here, we'll create a new layer. So we have to then drag it underneath. We'll go to our colors. We'll go ahead and add the yellow tone here, top of the 3rd column. Let's go to our brush and go to the option of airbrushing and the soft brush. We will set the opacity to 100% and we'll set the size to around about 4 or 5%. And that's going to vary. Now what we're looking for gaps where that sun can make its way through these 2 lighter sets of trees. So I imagine that sun or moon is going to come through here, like so. And then this tree here stops that. I'll set it down to about 4% now, and I'll create another glow coming through, say here. Now you want to make sure that you don't press too hard. You can always do a Gaussian blur, which is what I'm going to do in a second. And then another one through that gap there, of course, through those trees, creating a bit more of a glow and a beam of light running through. Lovely. As I mentioned, we're going to want to go ahead and blur that potentially. So you just go to your adjustments in Gaussian blur and swipe from left to right and just blur that out a tiny bit to about 13% and tap on your adjustments when you're done. Make sure you then also go to your layer. You tap on its blend mode and change it from normal to color dodge. That will change up a lot of the color in it and sort of bring out a few of those trees as well and a few more warm tones. And then finally, we'll go to our layers. We will create one more new layer and then we'll drag it in front of those dark trees. We'll change the blend mode of this from normal to color dodge straight away. We'll use the same color. We're going to go to our brush. And for you, the category will be called luminance. And we're going to use the bokeh lights brush. Maximum opacity and the size is set to about 22%. You want to tap really with this brush first of all and create one little area there of bokeh, and then grab your cursor. You can use rotate, you can use uniform and scale it and rotate it and put it into position with one of your beams. So it could be like over here, for example, but I want it sort of somewhat centered as if it's coming off of this beam here and breaking through the trees. And I'll make it a little bit smaller because we don't need it that large really. We can rotate it a tiny bit. Tap on your cursor when you're done and you should have a little bit of bokeh there just making its way through. And if we go ahead, we pinch with 2 fingers to go all the way out, you can see the general scene. And if we go ahead and we zoom in, we go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this minimalistic design. As always, make sure to tag me in your finished creations wherever you decide to share them. Subscribe for weekly Procreate tutorials. And if you want even more tutorials from me, you can come and join me over on Patreon, where I post 3 exclusives every single month to my Patreon supporters, and the catalogue just continues to grow. We're well over 100 Patreon exclusives at the time of recording. 3 more added every month, your name featured in videos, sneak peeks, early access to tutorials, and much, much more. So check that out using the link in the description down below. And if you like this video here on YouTube, you'll love this one on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.